Hi, I'm Ann with Kai Dragon Media. This is the gardening and cooking channel. I'm doing a few things for Kai while he's busy at work. Want to get this gardening channel going really good. So while I'm out letting the video run at some of the birdies, they're more active today since we had a storm last night. Kind of come through, blew stuff over. So I've got a little work to do in the sanctuary, but I haven't even hit the garden yet, and I know there's a lot of work to do out there. It seems like you're constantly pulling weeds. It's just part of it, but we like doing it, and hopefully we're going to have a good harvest of fruit this year. We planted lots of vegetables and even planted a lemon tree and lime tree, which for this part of the country, we're going to have to take it indoors once it gets cold. Anyway, I want to talk to you about things that you can plant during the month of June. So it is not too late to direct sow cucumbers. That means you can still go buy plants if you want to, or just get your seeds right in the ground. They love the heat. It doesn't seem to bother them. You don't have to worry so much about getting shade cloth up to protect your plants like you do tomatoes and some of the other things that stop producing once it gets too hot. So I do highly recommend shade cloth. It's a big pain putting it up. Squash is another plant that you can plant in June. There's many different types. Some people even start some of their winter squash. It's a little early for that. But your zucchini, there's so many different types of squash. You just really got to look to see what you kind of like. We like the crookneck squash and the yellow squash and the zucchini, of course, during the winter months. About October, we start making lots of zucchini bread, so and try to get it in the freezer. It makes nice Christmas presents. Green beans, they're another thing that are really good to plant. I recommend the bush beans, so that way you don't have to worry about poles or trellises for them to climb on. But they're easy to plant, they're easy to grow. It's just depending on how big your family is and how many beans you're going to need. I mean, you might waste a whole garden bed for beans and only get a few meals out of it, but they are so delicious. There's a big difference than anything that you buy in the can, so you'll really like it. You can plant several rounds. As once one's growing and you're picking the beans, put another one in the ground and just keep it going through the summer. Melons and cantaloupe, they thrive in the heat. It takes 3 to 10 days for them to sprout, so you want to get those in the ground. Your blacktail watermelon is a quick producing watermelon. You don't want to let the soil crack and try to mulch around them. I like doing a lot of the gardening where I let stuff grow up the trellises. Kai doesn't really do that as much, but if you save like old tights and hose and things like that, they make great little hammocks for your melons to kind of rest on, so you can secure them if you do try to grow on the trellis. The good thing about growing on the trellis is you're able to get more fruit in a smaller area. So that's one thing. I really do like gardening where the things are going straight up. I like even letting the tomatoes grow on trellises, or just have wires going down. Some people use the cattle panel, which is great because you can secure them right there. They're not going to go anywhere, and they can get as tall as you want them to get, depending on which species you get. Some of them only get so big, they're like the dwarf type, and they're only going to produce so much fruit. The other type that are able to grow, and the plants get bigger, a lot of times it will tell you right on the plant or on the seed packet how tall they can get. The big thing about tomatoes is you want to give them space, and they need a lot of airflow. If they're not getting the airflow they need, that's when your plants start getting sick, and you can wipe out a whole area of tomatoes, and you don't want to do that. So just be really careful with that. If you see it's getting too crowded, you may need to transplant one. I don't really recommend it, but I know there was a time where last year one of my tomato plants got transplanted 2 times. It finally found its perfect spot, and it just went crazy. So you can grow a lot in a small area. It's just how you do it and how you go about it and how you care for it. And I do like to do a lot of things where you're planting them in pots or 5-gallon buckets or even the grow bags. They're great if you have apartments and you just have like an outside balcony, but you want to get back to nature and have a small garden. So, and they make patio plants, but tomatoes are another thing where it is a good thing to grow in June. And in June you can find some of the best deals. If you go to a lot of your hardware stores and even your floral shops and your garden centers, they'll have a lot of plants that have already been in the seedling stage and grown up, and they'll be 4 or 5 inches tall already. And a lot of times you can get a pretty good sized plant fairly reasonable, and you're able to get it in the ground. So my pot plants this year are doing really well. They don't do as well in the heat, and like I said, I do try to put a little shade around them. And I like to give them about 6 to 8 hours of direct sun. But if you're worried about like the tomato worms and other kind of pests that go in there, because we don't like using any type of solutions or sprays or anything in our garden. We like to do everything organic if we can. The only thing we might spray around is the walking path if it starts getting a little out of hand. But if you heavily mulch the area, it keeps the weeds down. And we learned that if we put thick cardboard down along with the cloth that they recommend for 10 or 20 years, it keeps the weeds way down when we're putting that 2 or 3 inches of mulch down. And this is the best time of year to get your mulch a lot cheaper. Instead of paying $4 or $5 a bag, a lot of times you can find it for $2.50 a bag, because it's late in the season and they want to clear some of it out because they get overstocked. On your tomatoes, if you plant onions near them or in between them, it'll help chore some of the pests out of the way, and you'll also have onions to use in your garden. I like to also plant basil in around my tomato plants. I don't know why, it just smells good. The tomatoes always taste wonderful, but they claim that your tomatoes will actually produce more. So pick off your flowers though on the basil plant if you want your basil plant to grow and get bigger. I know we have planted a few spices that kind of got out of hand. We had a sage plant that just turned into a huge bush, and we're going to wait until this fall to transplant it out of the bed because it's taken over 3/4 of a 4x4 bed. I mean, it's just unreal. And the same way with this thyme plant, it's gotten very big, and so we'll probably find smaller areas or maybe go back to putting them in pots so they're more contained. Same way if you plant mint. If you plant mint, it can take over an area if you let it go. So you want to keep that in mind. Some of your spice plants are going to get really big. Sweet potatoes are fun to grow in containers. You just get the slips and plant them. You can plant them directly in the ground, but They're fun to plant and they're so good to eat. Peppers. You don't want to forget about peppers. There are so many different types. Make sure you read about them. Some people cannot do the habanero or the ghost peppers. I, for one, cannot. I've got a medical condition where if I eat something that hot, it could really mess with my acid reflux and stuff. So you want to warn people when you're cooking with peppers or using peppers and let them know how hot they are. So about the only thing I go is I may get some jalapenos and plant a few of them, but I mostly plant the sweet peppers. And I like the banana peppers. They're really great. If you like stuffed peppers, I found the banana peppers are probably just as good as stuffing the jalapenos. They just taste wonderful. And later on we'll show you a good recipe for that in one of our videos. I love the bacon wrap, and you can even use them on the grill. So we have found a method for grilling them. Kai does a lot of grilling. Eggplant's another thing that people really love growing in containers. It's kind of like your tomatoes and peppers and stuff. I mean, they grow straight up. If they have shoots that are growing off to the side, whereas eggplant usually doesn't do that. They just grow up. The container plants are a lot better. That way you're not wasting a whole garden bed. We do a lot of raised garden beds. We do the potted plants, and we also plant directly in the ground too, because we had some yard area that we really didn't want to put another raised bed down in case we had to get a load of dirt some year, or you need to get in the gate or anything like that. And so just using the ground and fencing off an area. We have little dachshunds that like running around, and before you have anything in the garden bed, we don't get too mad at them if they're hopping in and out of the ones that are a foot tall. But I had one of my dachshunds, Annabella, the other day decided she was going to make a nest right on top of the area that we had planted carrots in, because we had put some straw mulch down, and she made herself at home, made a little nest and got some sun. Anyway, corn is another thing that they're wind pollinated. You want to remember that. So plant them in an area where the wind can catch them and let them do their thing. And they will take up quite a bit of space. So we usually try to plant them in the back part of the yard and put them directly in the ground. Black-eyed peas, they're another bush bean. They're a companion to your pepper plants. And the pepper plants will also make a little shaded area as your beans are growing. You want to plant your peppers first and get them growing up before you put the bean plants in the ground, but they're great. And remember that peppers are a heat-loving plant too. If you're going to do grow bags, I recommend the 5-gallon bucket or the 7-gallon grow bags for your best results. Some people like planting the yucca plant, and it's something we don't really mess with, but in other parts of the United States it is something that people use and do for food. Sunflowers, we do. This year we didn't plant them, we let them naturally come up. Because of feeding the birds and stuff, the seeds will fall on the ground and get in the dirt when a rain comes, and then pretty soon you have sunflowers coming up. There's a few of them that we have growing in the pots, and we decided since we do have quite a few birds, we're leaving the sunflowers alone, see what they do. So chives and fennel and dill, and there's also a Mizuna mustard plant. those are some of your spice plants that are really, really great to plant in June. You can still plant some flowers from seeds too, like your camille, marigold, your zinnias. I don't know if I'll even say this right, but echinacea, and of course your sunflowers and borage and calangulas. They're all really cool flowers to plant, and like I said, June you can still plant them from seeds if you want. June's also the time to find some really nice plants for your garden, and what I like to do is go to the garden centers and get some that are well established. And you want to keep in mind a lot of times your plants are root bound, and you want to get your dirt ready before you pull that plant out of the pot, and then loosen the roots around it and make sure that the ball can continue to grow. So loosen that up a little bit. Try not to let a lot of air get to your roots when you're planting your flowers. And I wish you all the best and lots of success in your gardening, and we'll be showing more tips and tricks and things that we know about gardening, and some of the different foods that we like to try. Today I made a meatloaf, and since I'm German, I also like making bierocks, but I decided to make a meatloaf, and instead of using a lot of crackers and stuff like that, stuffed it with cabbage. So I've done it before. It usually turns out really, really good. Tastes wonderful with a brown gravy. So we're going to try that for lunch. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching the birds and the squirrels while I've talked about what to plant in June. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave your comments below on his videos, and check out his gaming channel if you're into gaming entertainment. And he does have a talk show on Wednesdays as well. And see what's out there. I mean, we're a small channel getting started, but we have a lot of information that we'd like to share. And growing up, I learned a long thing years ago from my mom, and even my other moms that I had in my life. They all loved gardening and planting flowers, and I guess that's where my son gets it. And he knew I always liked doing that too. I've always really loved gardening, and they say do what you know and talk about what you know, and as a writer it's really important to write about the things that you know. So tune in to his channel, like, subscribe, and leave your comments, and you all have a wonderful day, and thank you.